Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Freeport City Council. It's Monday, December 29th at 6:01. I will officially call this meeting to order and declare that a quorum is present. At this time, I will ask Councilman Rosso if he will lead us in both the pledge and the prayer.
Let's pray. Gracious Father, we're so grateful and thankful for gathering us together today. We ask you, Lord, to be with us, stand by us, show us the way, Lord. We know that you have all the answers. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, and you may be seated. Nice to see a crowd here tonight on this cold Monday. As usual, we're going to start off with audience participation. First, I have Miss Virginia Tippin. Would you like to wait? Next, I have Mr. Manning Rollerson.
Well, good evening, Council. How
Good
y'all
evening.
doing? How was your holidays?
Good
Hope
so far.
everybody is well because we all still here. Thank God for being here. Well, I got up today because I really didn't have nothing to say, but I came up here anyway because I have to have something to say. But anyway, I was asked numerous times to go up and see about being on the Citizens Board. I find that to be not good for me. And the reason why is because of all the past history, and I would be biased, totally biased. And that's not fair for the city, and it's not fair for our officers. You know, there's a history with my family and the officers, and I would not, be unfair to them. But I do want to say, when we put this board together, let it be diverse as much as possible, because there haven't been no diversity in this city in a long time. And to see that,
I think they're having a hard time hearing you in the back.
and to see that our council is now diverse is a good thing, because it hadn't been like this in quite a long time, off and on. So I'm glad to see diversity. We need more diversity, and I'm really asking the city of Freeport to look into at least trying to develop our communities. We need those communities. Freeport needs to develop some kind of housing, for real. We really need it. That's our most strongest tax income is housing. And the majority of the houses in this community are old, like the house my daughter living in, the sewer is coming all the way down the road. And I told the guy over 10 times that you need to do something with it. But what can you do when they got to rent these type of places, because there's nothing else in the city? So the city should really consider building more communities that bring more families. It brings the workforce, and those taxes will be here. So whatever that we can do to help the city to grow, move forward from here, because we can't live on the past. We got to look for the future. Everything that happened yesterday is supposed to stay in yesterday. Everything that comes with the day comes with the day. We got to move forward. It's 2026. It's time to move forward and leave this atmosphere of fighting one another alone, and let's move forward. I thank you guys for hearing me out.
Thank you, Mr. Rollerson. Next, we have Mr. Sam Reyna.
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Sam Reyna, and I retired in 2002 North Avenue G, a Civil Service Commission. The selection of Ms. Margaret Bagman and Mr. Tyrone Morrow to serve as members of the Civil Service Commission is the right decision. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. They're both a good moral character, and they're both citizens of Freeport, which should be a requirement. All appointed members to the city commissions and boards should be citizens of Freeport, with the exception of the EDC and Main Street Historical Commission. The facts, December the 18th, Councilman, Mr. Jeff Pena made this statement. We've had the hardest problems filling these boards. Why do we want to limit the pool of good people willing to serve? He's talking about appointing non-citizens of Freeport to these boards. The problem is not lack of volunteers. The problem is Councilman Ward A. As long as he's on the council, they don't want to volunteer. Ms. Margaret Bagman is an alternate on the Board of Adjustments. There was an opening for a new member, and she volunteered to be an appointed member. Instead, this council appointed someone from Mule Chew, Texas, or Lake Jackson, somewhere other than Freeport, Texas. Nicole Mireles and I are volunteers. She serves on the Board of Adjustments, and I serve on the Charter Review Commission. Recently, Councilman Pena wanted Nicole and I removed because of an unethical complaint from, I assume, was William Nelson, and he's not a citizen of Freeport. Why did this council address a complaint from someone that don't even live in Freeport? To date, we don't know if he's a complainant and what are his unethical allegations. This council never provided Nicole and I with the allegation complaint or the complainant's name. Councilman Matamoros says the council to provide us with the complaint allegations, information. We're still waiting. There's no transparency within this governing body. I got the information today, but I had to put in an application for public information, and I just got it today. But that information should have been given to me when they were put on the agenda for discussion and possible action. They should have given me this copy. I had to apply for the public information. I just got it today. Nicole and I are good if the council decides by majority vote not to reappoint, but reconsider removing us because of false allegations. After May, you will see a flux of volunteers to the commission and boards. To members of this council and citizens in the gallery, wishing you all a Merry Christmas and the best of 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We got this nice clock up here, but I don't see the remote. That's all right. We're already past that point. It's partially my fault. I should have been prepared a little better. All right, moving on. Next, we have proclamations, presentations, and updates. 2A, presentation on the Police Officer and Firefighters Civil Service Commission. Chief Howell, we're going to let you go first.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So Chief Motley and I decided to kind of joint do this together, as it does affect with both of our departments. So we're going to kind of go back and forth through this. You have the clicker, Toby? Okay.
I can see this monitor is on. Is that monitor on?
Or Toby, you can just select it. Oh, okay. Okay, so the start is, what is civil service? This applies to the hiring, promotion, and disciplinary process for the employees that are covered there at the police and fire department. This is, for the police department, this would be for only sworn personnel, so for police officers, and then at the fire department is our fire and EMS personnel. It does state disciplinary actions in there, however, do understand that there also is the option of arbitration, what is referred to as arbitration. That is an option for an employee if they do go through a disciplinary process. So Local Government Code 143 states the purpose of civil service, being able to have personnel that are free from political influence and to be able to have permanent employment tenure as public servants. And then the members of the Firefighter Police Officer Civil Service Commission shall administer this chapter in accordance for the purpose.
Okay, our next slide, we're going to go over some definitions so we can keep you on board as we talk through the statute. Civilian Oversight Board means board of office or office established by a municipality to practice oversight of monitoring or investigations of firefighter police officers or the departments by the members of the public who are not firefighters or police officers. Section 1A, Commission, means firefighters and police officers. Civil Service Commission, by definition. Next slide.
So as mentioned, the firefighter definition is a firefighter who is appointed in compliance with this chapter under the civil service status of 143.005 or 143.048, which we'll go through in just a minute. And then police officer is again just specific for sworn personnel, somebody who is a peace officer that was appointed to this as well in accordance with 143.005, .084, and then also .103.
All right, in the definitions here on 143.05, status of employees, if chapter is adopted, each firefighter or police officer serving in a municipality adopts the chapter and who has been in service of the municipality for more than 6 months at the time of this chapter is adopted and who is entitled to civil service classification has the status of a civil service employee and is not required to take a competitive exam to remain in the position the person occupies at the time of the adoption. B, in a municipality that adopts this chapter, an employee of the fire department whose primary duties are to provide emergency medical services for the municipality is considered to be a firefighter who is a member of the fire department performing fire medical emergency technology entitled to civil service protection and covered by this chapter. 143.084 talks about civil service status and pension benefits for certain firefighters. A, each firefighter who since December 31st of 1969 has been continuously employed as a temporary employee under the provisions codified in section 143.083, has the full status of a civil service employee with all rights and privileges granted by section 143.005, section B. A firefighter covered by subsection A, is eligible to participate in earned pension benefits. The person may buy back service credits in a pension fund in which the permanent firefighters in the department have participated since the person's employment, sorry about that. The credits may be bought at the rate determined at the actuary of the affected pension fund. And then subchapter G, provisions applicable to the municipality with a population of 1.5 million or more, and certain other municipalities, section 143.03, specialized police division, it's not applicable in this standard.
So next comes the question, what is Civil Service Commission? So this governs the process for the civil service employees across the city departments, which for us, again, is just police and fire, and it is just the police officers and firefighters. So this would not cover any office personnel at the fire department, at the police department, dispatch, code enforcement. Those individuals are not classified under civil service. So it's established.
Chief, I'm sorry, Mayor, Chief, do you mind repeating that list of who's not be part of the civil service?
It's basically, everybody, just police officers and firefighters are the only ones that it applies to.
And when we go through this, it'll
I had a
cover
question if there was EMTs included or not.
what I think we just read at the very first one. It covers that when they're providing that service.
Okay, so EMTs are included?
Yes.
Because
Okay.
your EMTs are your firefighters are your EMTs.
Yeah, on the definition, it didn't say EMTs, that's why I was asking.
Well, that's for here for Freeport.
It's emergency medical service is the proper verbiage for that overall.
Right, well, so they will be considered a part of this particular program, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then in the police department, which are excluded again?
So just any office personnel, dispatchers, code enforcement, animal control, jailers,
Excluded?
Only police officers at the police department. Those are
Those
the-
that are patrolling with, I guess,
Those are that are sworn law enforcement officers.
okay.
So if they are sworn law enforcement officer, they are covered by civil service.
Is it safe to say anybody basically having a sidearm?
You could, I mean.
'Cause everybody else does not have it,
Yeah, I was
right?
about to say, because chances are, I'm not going to have anybody with a sidearm that's not one of my sworn officers, so,
Right. So is the jailers also with sidearms?
no.
Okay, good.
No, the jailers are not commissioned officers.
All right, thank you. Just want to make sure we got that clarification so that everybody understands that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, again, civil service commissions established by Government Code 143.006. Its, again, purpose is developed to enforce rules of certain selection, employment, and disciplinary process. And again, like I said, unless the employee chooses to go to arbitration. So your big focus is, it's going to help pass what's going to refer to as the local rules that you'll hear, and which is going to have set out the specific guidelines for the hiring, the promotion. A lot of that is already set about in the local government code, but it does give a little bit of, little bit of wiggle on certain things that can be established.
Back on what is Civil Service Commission on 143.006, implementation of the commission. On adoption of this chapter, the firefighter and police officer Civil Service Commission is established in the municipality. The chief executive of the municipality shall appoint the members of the commission within 60 days after the date of this chapter is adopted. Within 30 days after the date of the municipality's after the date the municipality's first full fiscal year begins, after the date of the adoption election. The governing body of the municipality shall implement this chapter, and that's where we're at today. B, the commission consists of 3 members appointed by the municipality's chief executive and confirmed by the governing body of the municipality. Members serve staggered 3-year terms with the term of 1 member expiring each year. If a vacancy occurs, if a vacancy occurs, or if an appointee fails to qualify within 10 days after the date of appointment, the chief executive shall appoint a person to serve as the remainder of the unexpired term in the same manner as the original appointment.
Excuse me a second, chiefs. And Toby, I'm being told that this is not being streamed.
I'll post it on Facebook, yeah, it's live.
It is live?
Yes, sir. It actually should be posted.
All right, let's proceed.
It's not clicking to the next.
Oh, sorry, it's not Facebook,
Okay. So the implementation of commission, the persons appointed to the commission, they have to be of good moral character, be a United States citizen, be a resident of the municipality, which the commission would be established for more than 3 years, be over 25, and not have held a public office within the preceding 3 years. And on the civil service flyer that we put out, we also reference this section in here and these specific requirements.
Question, what does the commission do? Recommends, adopts, updates, and enforces local rules that govern civil service employees in various aspects of employment, such as the hiring and recruitment, testing, promotions, discipline, probationary periods, et cetera. Conducts varies from type of appeal hearings regarding discipline promotional exams and for other show cause type hearings like suspension, indefinite suspension, meaning termination, and protest of testing process.
Okay, so once appointed, we get into the implementation of the commission. So the initial members shall elect a chairman and a vice chairman within 10 days after the dates the members have qualified. Each January, the members shall select a chairman and vice chairman, and the governing body of the municipality shall provide the commission adequate and suitable office space to conduct business. Chief Motley and I have already met regarding a potential date there at the beginning of January to be within that 10-day compliance. So once those 3 individuals are appointed tonight, we would immediately after the meeting ask them, hey, here's some potential dates for us to be within this compliance, to see what date we could get that set. That meeting will be posted just like any type of council meeting or any type of board meeting. And so we're in the process of getting that established and set up as well. And then in addition to, we have looked at an office space there at City Hall and are in the process to get that set up, so the commission, if they needed a private work area, they would have that as well.
The meeting frequency, the commission meets on a needed basis. It is expected to meet on average 2 to 4 times annually, although more frequent meetings may occur with the initial setup. So right now, we're probably looking at, they may meet monthly as they progress through the, setting up the rules for the commissions, things like that. Members are expected to attend at least 75% of the scheduled meetings that are posted.
So the removal of commission member, there is a section in the local government code that talks about removal of a commission member. And ultimately, that individual could be removed if they are guilty of an act of misconduct in office, something that would be constituted as a crime of moral turpitude, if you will. If the member is indicted or charged with a criminal offense, they would automatically be suspended until that disposition is resolved. And so until they either plead guilty or they're found guilty, at that point and everything, if they do not plead guilty or if they are found not guilty, they would be reappointed. And during that time, there can be a substitution for that commission member, but while that is ongoing in the process, they would actually be removed in that temporary time period.
All right, 143.008 talks about the local rules, adoption and publication of the rules. The commission shall adopt rules necessary for the proper conduct of the commission business. The commission may not adopt a rule permitting the appointment or employment of a person who is not without good moral character, physical or mentally unfit, or incompetent to discharge the duties of the appointment or employment. The commission shall adopt rules and prescribe cause for removal or suspension of a firefighter or police officer. The rules may comply with the grounds for removal prescribed by section 143.051.
So for the publication of the rules, the commission shall publish each of the rule that they adopt, create the classification and the senior list, post that as well. Those are to be made available on demand, so at any time that any employee or any citizen asks for a copy of those rules, those would be made available. Of course, we would also have those published online. That's what many of the cities do as well. And so the majority of the vote, once the majority is granted, it has to be written, typewritten, printed, however, but once the majority passes these rules, then at that point, those rules, a copy has to be mailed to the actual commission, a copy has to be mailed to the department heads, there has to be copies posted at the police station and the fire station, and then also copies mailed to each of the different fire stations, because you know in some cities there are maybe 10 or 20 fire stations. And so again, it's to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to review those rules for 7 days.
And then as directors, we're supposed to keep a clean copy available for the employees as well. Another local rule is commission appeal procedure, section 143.010. Exception is otherwise provided by this chapter. If a firefighter or police officer wants to appeal to the commission from an action from which an appeal or review is provided by this chapter's firefighter or police officer, need only file an appeal with the commission within 10 days after the date of action occurred.
Then we get into training. For the directors, the police, fire, human resources, we are all scheduled to attend the training in January. So once we are able to attend that training, that's when we feel like we'll be able to get a lot more information and details on things. That training is sponsored by the Texas Municipal Human Resource Association, and they do it specifically, you know, topics that are, you know, very specific to civil service and to the different size cities, because there are different rules as far as when you get a population over a certain amount. But then that way we would gather all of the information that's just relevant to our population. Once the commission gets appointed as well, we're going to look at doing an initial orientation for them, and then offer them additional training down the road, and then also city council receiving additional training down the road as well. There's several of the different civil service attorneys that we've spoken with that do offer that type of training that would come in, whether it be for whatever time frame we want to set. We want to, we want an hour training, we want a 4-hour training, whatever it is that we set up, they are available to do that. And so those are some conversations that we have already had as well with those individuals.
Our next part of our presentation is the timeline. Phase 1, legal and administrative setup. That's where we're at now, the first 60 days. The ordinance adoption to canvass the election. I believe that was already done in the first part of December. Ordinance to establish Civil Service Commission and the appointment of Civil Service Commission. That's on tonight's agenda. Phase 2 will be rule and development and revision, which is the next 60 to 120 days is what we marked out. Draft of local rules and human resource integration. So.
Then moving on to phase 3 is the policy and operational alignment. Over that 180 to 240 days, doing policy revisions, because there will be certain things in both of our policy manuals, in addition to the city policy manual, that'll need to be revised to kind of adapt and encompass the civil service guidelines. Then also we'll kind of do some process mapping to be able to figure out, okay, where are we going from here? What's our next step? That we think we'll be able to get a better timeline laid out once we go to the training set forth by the TMHRA, and then also have one of the civil service attorneys come in to do some training that's specific to Freeport. And then setting up our testing procedures. What are those going to look like for the future? Because, come October, our hiring processes will change, our promotion processes will change. Then going into phase 4, that's going to be kind of the training and rollout. Getting the training of all of our staff. Of course, we want our supervisors and employees to be very familiar with what it is and everything that we're adopting. The training of the Civil Service Commission as well. We want this to be very fresh on their mind of what their roles are going to be once that October date hits. And then also the policy publication of those policy changes that are going to be going into effect. And then phase 5 is officially the full implementation, and so that'll be when civil service goes into full active mode. So, yeah, now we're just here for questions that hopefully we might have answers to.
Council, do you have any questions for either one of the chiefs?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, in terms of an officer having an issue that they are wrongfully disciplined or wrongfully investigated. We had the previous city manager, Lance Petty, weaponizing investigations against officers. If that should happen again, what recourse does a patrolman, an officer, have to either expose the abuse, look for some kind of legal relief, and for that matter, having anybody advocate on their behalf?
So for the Civil Service Commission.
Let me revise that question, I'm sorry,
Okay.
excuse me. Let's say it's the chief doing that. What is the recourse for a patrolman on that, or an officer?
So let's say I go to issue a discipline that would be Officer John Smith is suspended for 3 days.
Yeah.
That officer does not believe that punishment fits the crime, or doesn't believe the crime occurred, if you will.
Right.
And so at that point, they could appeal to the Civil Service Commission, or they could also elect arbitration. And so if it was appealed to the Civil Service Commission, all of those documents and records would be turned over to the Civil Service Commission for them to review, to make the determination if, A, there was suitable evidence to show that Officer John Smith committed policy violations ABC, and that the 3-day suspension was sufficient for the policy violations. Or they could also look at arbitration, and if the officer elected arbitration, at that point, the city pays for half the arbitration. The officers' legal association, which is generally going to be CLEAT or TMPA, would cover for the other half of that arbitration. And then I think it's the American Arbitration Association, is that? or the Arbitration Association of America. It's 3 A's, I can't remember the exact order. They send a list of 7 names. I would have the opportunity to strike off 3 of those names. The employee would have the opportunity to strike off 3, and then whatever name is left remaining would be the arbitrator, and then that person would review. And that person would not have any association here with Freeport whatsoever. That person could be in another state for that matter, since it's across America.
So really, they have 2 options, really.
Yes.
Okay. And so when they appeal to the commission, I imagine, let's say, let's use a calendar month. On the day 1, they get notified that they're going to be suspended for 3 days. On day 2, they're like weighing their options. Day 3, they apply. And they decide to go with the commission. What's the timetable and process between the point where they say they're going to go with the commission? Who do they notify they're going to the commission? And how soon does the commission respond with an actual meeting?
I do not have all that information laid out yet. That's some of the things that we're wanting to learn as far as what some of the items can be specified for local rules. Some of them are just strictly laid out in local government code, and that's some of the stuff that we're hoping to learn at that upcoming training. So I don't want to speak.
In the code, there's spelled out parameters they have to respond, the commission has to respond by after they receive notice.
A certain amount of days.
Yes, and you've got it's the 10 days that the employee can respond to the commission for appeal, then that starts the clock for them to call those assessments together.
But
10
again-
days to appeal the decision of the commission?
No,
No,
our
the
decision.
the
Or
suspension.
the discipline, whatever form of discipline is being appealed.
Okay.
So there can be
Or you-
certain steps in that process, like I said, that gets set up by local rules
Oh, I got you, yeah.
as far as, how that's going to go.
So this commission will define that structure of the response time, and then I guess it'll be a matter of availability as well, since there are no set meeting dates through the year other than the minimal 4 or minimal 3, what was it?
There's not even a minimal. That's just what you generally see. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm trying to think over my 3-year career, I can only think of 2 people that I've suspended for, so that would have been, realistically, then over 3 years, only 2 individuals that would have possibly appealed. So there might be 12 months that neither of us have any type of disciplinary that results in it being appealed to the commission. And so if so, then it would just be, is that something we want to set up in our local rules to say that the commission will meet at minimum once a year or at minimum twice a year?
Yeah.
Those are still things all up for,
But they still have their benchmark when they receive the appeal to start their process of time, and I don't remember what exactly those hours are. So it recognizes that appeal and act on that appeal, and just can't wait till the next quarterly meeting or anything like that.
Well, I'm kind of curious, the PowerPoint that you guys presented here this evening is useful, and it just kind of outlines a basic structure of what we're walking into. And I'm just trying to make sure that the public understands, and for that matter, council and everybody else understands, certainly the officers and everyone in the fire department understand what their options are. And I'm trying to understand this from just kind of like the main pillars of the structure. Like, here we have the appeal process. I'm curious, the commission's responsibility in terms of the appeal process, I think is very important, because that's kind of how and why we're here, is because,
Well, and
a
again-
lot of officers were upset with a lot of the shenanigans.
when that gets set up in the local rules, and that'll be a part of the actual training process.
Yeah.
So,
And, and I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at, okay, you have the administrative responsibilities for the commission. And, again, and then, of course, there's regular housekeeping. I'm just wondering, as an overall, who we're going to be looking at as the point persons for the police department from the city. Are we looking at the chief? Are we looking at the commission? The chair of the commission?
as far as for what? I guess that depends on,
That's the thing, right? So there's different things. I'm just kind of curious, at what point does the chief become, I guess, disempowered for the process? that the commission will then take over the lead on.
It's not a disempowering. I mean, Chief Motley and I will still be, handling our same roles. We'll still be, ourselves or the supervisors underneath us would still be issuing any type of discipline that would, we deem fit for the situation. Disciplines that are of suspension or higher, which is what was referred to as indefinite suspension or termination, those are the ones that become appealable to the commission or through arbitration. So at that point, it's not that we're disempowered, it's just some different individuals reviewing to see if we process it, properly through the correct protocols and with integrity.
This is their appeal process. The existing appeal process goes through the city manager.
So would
Okay?
you
This
characterize?
will go to the civil service for their appeal process, and they'll hear it from the information written, because it's not verbal, it's all documented in writing. And then they hear both sides and they go forward from there.
So right now, the appeal process is, the first starts with the department head, and that's for any department here in the city. Then the next step, if let's say that employee comes and brings me a piece of information that I wasn't privy to, and it possibly makes me change my mind on the suspension or the termination, I can even overturn my own decision. But if I look and say, well, you've not provided me anything new that makes me feel any different of the decision, then I stand my decision, then the next step of the process goes to the city manager. And so that's what's set up right now, again, for all city departments. This would just change that, where it would no longer, where it would no longer be, once I make the determination, the city manager's now out of it, and it's just either the commission or the arbitration.
So currently, on the current process, and I don't really want to get too far off, but this is germane in the sense that I want to make sure that the public understands how this process would work, but more importantly, the candidates for the commission also understand this, and there's no time like the present to learn a little bit more about what we're volunteering for, right? And so when we're talking about, how does an employee or an officer or a fighter ends up appealing a decision by their manager, you're saying the first step currently is they go to you, but they also involve HR typically as well, right? Or is it strictly just the manager? Or is HR also involved?
So usually for like the appeal process, it's usually myself and even HR is present during that time. And then sometimes might even include the city attorney, if it was maybe of termination relation, that then that employee has that opportunity again to present any type of new evidence. Maybe something like said to say that, well, were y'all aware of this or were you aware of that? Please reconsider for these following reasons.
So that's the current policy now, but once the civil service is actually in full force later this coming year, what will be their first option? What would be their, their recourse? Would it be, again, to go to the manager and
No.
HR? No, it'll be strictly going to,
Either the commission or arbitration.
or arbitration?
Yes.
And who is the point of contact to facilitate the arbitration for a complaint?
That'd be the commission itself.
Yeah,
So-
but say, ultimately, we
Once they
would,
file it, it stays there, we have nothing to do with it at that point.
So let's just say I'm a disgruntled, falsely, in my opinion, disciplined firefighter, right? We say, I think Chief Motley's just being tough on me, and he's disciplining me unfairly, right? And so 12 months down the road from here today, they say, well, okay, who do I call? I'm going to make a complaint about this disciplinary action. I'm going to make sure I contact the commission. Who do I CC on that email? The city manager, the
that's what
city
that
attorney?
process is going to be laid out in the local rules.
Okay.
That would be laid out for them to know exactly
So it's
what
not
it is.
universal. Every commission draws it up differently, is what you're saying?
They can.
They can,
They-
or is there a process already in place?
There's a uniform process pretty much there, and then when some of the rules don't cover, then they can make those decisions.
Right. So
And
like
this
the
is-
10 days that he spoke of.
Yeah. This will be what they produce to come out, and this will be eligible for each. And this is the city of Forney is the example that I've pulled out of my folder over here. We looked at several. The verbiage is common unless there's something on local level that's impacted it on another election, and then it all follows civil service process out of local government code.
And then the second question, I don't know if anybody else has a question. I know Councilman Davis had It seemed that you were going to ask a question on that part, or are you fine?
Keep going.
Okay. The second question I had was, you know, we've had multiple conversations over the last year about the compensation packages, the matrix, and who will be quarterbacking that. It seems like it's going to be a different set of eyes and set of ears for those conversations going forward. Can you help to describe what that's going to look like?
As far as for the matrix?
Well, just say the overall compensation for the police department and the fire department. I think that they're separate right now, right?
Right.
So for the police department, let's just go with that. You know, there's a lot of officers over the last couple of years during the budget cycle that have expressed, I think yourself included, Chief, that the matrix is outdated, and we need to revisit it. And I'm just curious, is that something we need to revisit now, or, excuse me, when the civil service is enacted fully, and we have commissioners in place, how is that going to be facilitated by the city in terms of the roles of the council, the roles of the police head, chiefs, and/or for that matter, the commission?
That's still going to be a budgeted item that then turns around and comes to council, you know, for the budget.
And the commission will have no role in that discussion?
As far as like selecting the amounts or?
In that discussion of negotiating how, you know,
Everything I
the
read out-
decision matrix is
No,
actually
they're not collective
constructed?
bargaining. They're not
Yeah.
collective bargaining.
Excuse me?
They did not vote in collective bargaining.
Okay, so.
This is just about the key things we covered: discipline, promotion, setting those dates, and following those basic
Hiring.
rules on appeals.
Okay, so not compensation. Compensation is not contemplated by the commission at any level or at any time?
No.
Okay,
No, that would still, when we get ready, you know, I have some different examples of matrices right now. As we work through that, you know, come this spring and it comes time for budget proposal stuff, those will be things that'll be brought forth to council,
Yeah.
just like we did last year.
well, I know that we were talking about it during this budget cycle, this last budget cycle, to, you know, address the compensation matrix, you know, for the police officers, and I'm not sure why we're not talking about it and why we're waiting for the next budget cycle. And then I was given the impression, well, it's
That's what
because we're
council
trying.
told me.
Oh, well, then I was given the impression it was because the civil service is going to have a more direct driving role in the whole process in the terms of the commissioners. And so I said, well, okay, maybe that makes sense. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. If the Civil Service Commission has no role in the compensation, then it's something I want to make sure that as a councilman, I can still start trying to push that we get that done sooner than later.
I think more the concern was the additional expenses that are associated with civil service, not knowing what all those expenses were going to be as compared to trying to set up the new matrix and look at some salary changes. So until we got, you know, the better idea of that, I mean, that was, the discussion was to start, you know, posing that up in the spring on some different ideas as we start our budget process.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's come to light here is how the budgets are going to be affected dramatically. The police department budget and the fire department budget based on the cost, the high cost associated with the civil service that were not, I guess, contemplated, is probably a fair word, or understood or even known prior to it being placed on the ballot. And so now what you're saying is that now we have to look at not only the matrix in terms of where we are in general, but now we got to look at it in terms of the civil service costs to the city and how we're going to basically overall budget.
Well, at the end of the day, whether we were civil service or not civil service, my push was just to get the matrix changed, period.
Yeah.
Because it was just, I've said that since I came here, that it was just not a good matrix, and it gives no incentive for individuals to stay within those first, 5 to 7 years.
Right.
But, my understanding was back during kind of our budget processes, that was a project y'all wanted it worked on, for the next budget year. So because of the additional expenses that it would even bring about with changing, the numbers for finance, because we would be changing the pay categories, we'd be changing how much each step's, pay difference is, and then the possibility of the fire department going on a matrix, and there was even discussion of the entire city going on some type of step matrix, so.
All right. Well, again, a lot to digest here this evening, and I want to make sure that, again, these particular questions of my own are answered from the chiefs on your part of the presentation. I may actually have some other questions for you here later as we go. No further questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Davis.
All right, good evening. Thank y'all. You know, since the last meeting, you know, the comments I made when, you know, it's a lot of unknown, and that's why I didn't want to vote, and, you know, things like that. So I appreciate the time y'all put in to put this presentation together for, you know, the council and the community, the citizens. So I do thank y'all for that. You know, this is a start, you know, but this is I mean, that's what I asked for. I mean, just, you know, something,
Right.
something. And when we got something today, but it's a long list of unknown, you know, still ahead. But I appreciate this start. I think we can, you know, I mean, we have to. We're at this point now. As Councilman Pena was asking some questions, and it seemed like, I mean, one of them that stood out is when he was asking, does that depower either one of y'all in any kind of way? And I understood that part. And
Yeah, I don't
what
see it as a depower, I see it as a checks and balance.
well, what I got out of it is just, it doesn't depower y'all, it depowers the city and the city manager, and, you know, the city in any say-so that goes on with the departments discipline-wise and stuff and things like that. So, and far as the other unknown, and I heard y'all talking about the matrix and things like that, I'm sure that that's gonna push us back again on that, because we have to go through a year of seeing what the cost changes in this procedure and this procedure on, you know, what it's gonna do to the budget. And you know, at the end of the fiscal year, I'm sure we'll be seeing it all by then, and we'll know it all by then. But I appreciate the work that y'all putting in. Hopefully, we continue to do this. I mean, because it's going to be more to learn. Y'all going to, you know, conferences or whatever y'all have to training and going to. So hopefully, we all, you know, stay transparent and learn together.
And some of the individuals that, some of the, you know, because we have to, the civil service has a civil service attorney that's a separate, you know, from the city attorney. And these attorneys, this is, all they do is civil service work. And in talking with a couple of those individuals, trying to get some different, you know, ideas of the cost that's associated with that, those are some of the individuals that do some of this training. And the earliest one that I have found to be able to even offer training, they said, is possibly at the end of February. And so we're February and April and May are months that have been mentioned to me. And so that's what, you know, Chief Motley and I are hoping to, once we go to this one training and can get something established, that we can, again, like I said, get something set up for the spring, whether council decides to have it in a workshop or something in a presentation at a normal council meeting, however y'all decide at that time, for us to be able to move forward with some more education over that.
So is that training the same training that the commissioners would be attending, or is this a separate training just for the chiefs?
No, we would do a training specifically for council, and then we would do a training specifically for the commissioners.
Okay.
And then there'd be a training specifically for staff.
Yeah, staff, and then does that also include all the officers and the fire
Yes.
department? Okay. And it's only through these attorneys that that's actually facilitated?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
The training is strictly through those individual attorneys that you're
is
referencing?
That is all that I have found right now. Not saying that there's not others, that's just when we go to this training, we might be able to connect with some other individuals, but in talking with other cities, everything that I've gotten is just reference back to certain attorneys.
It's a very small market on this whole topic. So the same names keep coming up.
Yeah.
So we don't know if there's anyone else out there than 2 or 3 names that keep popping up.
I see.
Councilman Rosso, do you have any questions?
No, sir. No questions.
All right. So as far as the training goes, for council and the commission, that will be done by someone outside, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's what we're shooting for, just to get, somebody with the most experience that's truly a subject matter expert on the matter.
Okay, that's important. Another question I had, and I don't even know if it's an option, but is it possible for a member or members, plural, of the commission to attend the training that y'all are going to in January, or is that title specific?
I would have to research that. I don't know the answer to that question.
I believe there's one commissioner I saw titled on there, so it may be totally open, but it all, timing and availability of our commission.
Right. Well, I'd like to see if we can figure that out, and if it is an option, then we'll reach out to members of the commission that
And I
have
don't know,
been
Donna,
appointed.
I was about to say, Donna, do you know if that?
I think that they are able.
Okay, so we'll check on that and verify, I don't know that answer, so that's why I wanted to.
Right. Because we all know when we go to these trainings, or you go to any meetings, you're going to pick up something that Mr. Rosso didn't pick up, and you're going to pick up something that I didn't because I was asleep in the back.
So you're not going, you don't get to go then.
So in my opinion, the more people we get
And
going,
that's-
the more
and that's what
beneficial it's going to be
both
for
of us, I have
everybody.
4 of us going from the police department, and, both, 2 from HR.
I have 2, and then if my fire marshal comes in, I'll be the 3rd.
So, yeah, that's what we're trying to, because we're wanting to be able to grasp as much as we can.
When is that? Where is that?
It's in Waco. Do you remember the dates?
January 28th through 30th.
28th through 30th. I
It's like
remembered it
that
was
last week in January.
In Waco?
Mhm.
Yes.
And you're saying that council can attend?
That's what I was saying. I'd want to check to make sure, for the commission and council. She's saying she thinks, but we just,
Yeah.
I'd have to double check.
I think the more training for council, the better, along the way, for sure. And the sooner the better. So if the soonest any kind of training is made available for anybody that's going to be having a meaningful role in the process, I think it's very important that council's involved in that as well. You think so, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the more education we get, period, the better. So council, any other question for the 2 chiefs? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation by Mr. Chris Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the presentation from the chiefs, and it covered a lot of the important points of the Civil Service Commission and the system. At the last meeting, there's a question that was asked by the councilman is that, hey, what exactly do these commissioner members do if we're going to appoint them or confirm appointment? We need to understand what are we appointing them to do? What type of task do they do? What sort of authority do they have? So I presented a presentation and went through the entire Civil Service statute and go through all the items that the Civil Service Commission prepares. And I apologize, I'm a little bit sick, so my voice may not be too clear. I'll see what I can do. Before I get going, there was a question about the time periods and the frames with when there's appeal of a suspension. Those are set forth in the statute very clearly. There's basically 2 sections. one section of the statute applies to all cities that are less than 1.5 million, and then another set of statutes that applies to cities that are more than 1.5 million. Obviously, we're on the low end. But in the statute, it requires that if police or fire personnel has a disciplinary suspension, the chief is required to send a report about that suspension to the commission within 120 hours. It has to be in writing. There's a 120-hour deadline. Whether the person agrees or doesn't agree, that paperwork has to go to the commission in writing. Later on, if there's an appeal, the chief cannot argue any facts or anything that fall outside of that written document. So it's very important that once, we're a long way from actually implementing this process, but it's very important that that when we get through this, that the chiefs are aware that, hey, if you suspend somebody, you have this burden, whether the person protests or not, you're just required to send this documentation to the commission within 120 hours. After that, the employee has 10 days to decide if they want to appeal to the commission or not, and then the commission has 30 days to hear that appeal. So that's the time frame for how the suspension and appeal process for suspensions work. I know, because that was a question that was brought up. Yeah, back up there. I don't know if where do I point this to make it? Okay, so some of this is a little bit repetitive to what's already been covered, but I'm trying to give the general points without going through the specifics. What's the purpose of a civil service commission and procedure process? And the primary is to eliminate political favoritism or political retribution. So the point is to take all politics out of police and fire human resources, right? The largest civil service system in Texas is the city of Houston. The smallest, what I saw reported, was Sweetwater. I think now we may be the smallest city with civil service implementation. And Chapter 143 is a very comprehensive statute. It lays out pretty much every requirement related to this. So it's a complete guide of everything that, all the procedures and everything we need to know.
It should get it from this angle. Just
The antenna?
You're hitting the middle, so it's the right button.
Oh, this button,
Yeah,
okay,
that's the
pushing the wrong button. Okay, the chief's already covered this a little bit. The commission is a 3-member board appointed by the city manager, confirmed by city council. In the statute, it refers to department heads, but it clarifies in definitions that department head would be the chief of the police and chief of the fire department, a director. The commission has the authority to hire a director. The director is a full-time position that represents the commission, has an office at the city offices, and so they're the day-to-day person that represents the commission. That person is, like I said, advertised, hired, the whole decision made by the commission, but the city pays for that position. It has definition for firefighter and definition for police officers that have already been covered. Also mentioned that police and firefighters that have been in service for at least 6 months are covered by the system. And then here we are, after the election, we have 60 days to have, the city manager must appoint the commission within 60 days. That's why we're here today. And then we're required to put everything together. The commission is required to put everything together and implement the civil service system on or before October 31st of 2026. So we have sometime, basically 10 months between now and then to get everything organized and ready to go. So the goal is to remove, the the city manager appoints the commissioners that are ratified or confirmed by the city council. This is quite a bit different from your normal city boards. A lot different than planning and zoning, board of adjustments, EDC, things like that. The board, once they're appointed, they can only be removed for cause for violating their duty as a commissioner. So the council does not have the authority to remove and appoint members of this board like they do other boards. And the key goal is to make sure and appoint people that are not biased in favor of police or biased or fire or biased against. They're required to be completely neutral, and they're required to be non-political. And so if a commissioner engages in misconduct in some other fashion of their life, it doesn't matter. They have to be guilty of misconduct in their office or commit, the chiefs covered the crime. But it's actually a very high burden to remove a person from the commission. So here's the key question. What does the commission do? And actually, this commission has a lot of authority.
Excuse me. Can you go back one slide? I had a quick question, because I thought the council can remove a commissioner only upon finding the person is guilty of conduct of office. I thought it was only the commissioners that could remove a fellow commissioner. Is that not the case?
No, council can remove the commissioner, but it has to be that they violated conduct of their office.
Okay, because I thought the chief slide had it where the commissioners were doing it. Did I misread that slide? Was that misstated, or is?
I don't think that's what their slide said. I think they were talking about appointing a
No, this is the removal of a fellow commissioner. I thought it was the commissioners that removed him. I'm curious who is.
well, we can get, I'll look at that and get clarification.
All right, thank you.
So the commission has actually quite a bit of authority with regard to handling human resources for the police and fire. So there was discussion about discipline and appealing suspensions, but actually the commission has a much greater deal of authority than only that. They're in charge of all hiring, all terminations, all promotions, so that under this system, what happens is the commission has to formulate standardized written tests. So if there's an opening to hire a position for the city in either fire or police, all the applicants have to take a written test. Then that test is created by the commission. That test is graded by the commission. The results are compiled by the commission. Also, the person that takes the test gets points for seniority. So whatever the test score they get 1 extra point for each year of service of seniority with the city. From that point, the commission then puts together a list of 3. The top score, the person with the top score, and second and third place. The chief is then required to hire the person with the top score. If the chief doesn't want to hire the person from the top score, they have to give a specific reason and go to the commission, and the commission allows them then to either hire place number 2 or place number 3. The same procedure applies to promotions. The commission will establish the procedures and tests and requirements for promotion. There will be a standardized written test. The commission has to formulate that test. The commission gives that test, supervises that test, grades the test, and then gives those results to the police department. So previously the chief will hire and fire, decide who they hire, decide who they promote. Under this system, the commission makes that decision, not specifically the chief. And there's a lot of tasks that must be performed by the commission to establish these tests, administer the test, and so forth. So hiring, promotion, discipline, all of these categories, I think pretty much every category related to human resources is now going to be administered by the commission rather than the chiefs. Further, the commission, there was discussion about the local rules. The commission makes the rules as far as requirements for job performance. So the commission decides, does this person, did they violate the rules, should they be terminated? The commission decides what rules would apply to merit termination, right? So currently we have our regular HR rules. In the future, the commission will determine what those rules. And then those rules, like I said, are determined by only two of the, majority vote of the commission, right? So two people vote would determine all of the rules that would apply to employment.
Can I make another question here? Interrupt. Can you go back to the previous slide? And I want to remind everybody that this was originally, the spirit of this meeting, I guess, was so that we would all learn. So we're all learning and asking questions. This wasn't supposed to be an information dump and everybody just goes home and says, hey, we saw some slides. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of the questions that I find are very important to myself as a resident, as a councilman, and how we're going to basically move forward here, and for that matter, the future council, and for that matter, the commissioners and the residents, both here tonight and at home. And so I wish it was a format where residents can ask questions along the way too, but I'm not sure if that's possible. That might be at the mayor's discretion. But on this particular one here, on the promotions, the question I had was on the promotions, on the merit system, on the testing. Can you help to clarify that again? Because if there is a vacancy, say for example, the position of the captain, and we have staff, police officers that want to put their name in the hat for that, but it's an open to the public position, and so we have outside applicants as well as internal. The process now, is it that we go internal first and then outside, or is it, I'm trying to understand that, because I know in some organizations, it's internal first and foremost, and if you don't find it there, you take it out, or is it currently for the police department and the fire department that we open it up to everybody all at once, number one. And the second part of that question is, will that change, and how will that change?
Okay, so those rules will be determined by the commission, but going back to let's say the example of promotion, you have a captain position that comes open, and we have officers here at the police department that want to, apply for the promotion. They take the exam. Let's say you have two officers, and let's say we have an outside person apply for the position too, right? Mm-hmm. And say all three people score the exact same score, 80 on the exam. Mm-hmm. Well then, the person with the years of service to the city, those points are added. So if you have an officer that's been here, made an 80, but has been working here for 10 years, they'll get 10 points added to their score, so now they're 90. Mm-hmm. You have an officer that's only been here 3 years, they only get 3 points, so now they're the second place. And then you have someone that doesn't work for the city, they get 0 points because they haven't been with the city. So they would be stuck with the 80. So there is even if regardless of whether you do it internally or externally, there's a preference for your years of service.
So the new
might be something
Yeah,
you're
Chief.
adding here.
Yeah, I was about to say, just to clarify, so like, that is the process on right now.
Which is?
Like that they receive points for their years of service with the city.
Oh, there's an actual test now for points?
Yes.
There's I guess, some kind of matrix on that,
Yes, there's like a score sheet.
a score sheet?
And so like as far as for the different steps along the process, with civil service, there wouldn't be, except for the initial hiring, there wouldn't be anyone outside for any types of promotions. And so that's all strictly that's going to be, so if a captain's position came open, the only position that could, and actually for us, the captain position would be an appointed position, because the first position directly below the chief is an appointed position. And so I'll switch over and say lieutenant for that way for easier sakes. So for lieutenant position, the only individuals that could apply would be sergeants that have been sergeants for 2 years.
No external?
No.
Okay, and that's the way it is currently?
No, that's what I'm
That's
saying,
what-
with civil service and everything, it would be that only
internal.
only internal sergeants that have been in a sergeant position for 2 years would be eligible to apply.
Okay. And so we would, but as it stands now, it's both internal and external?
Yes, it gets posted internally 5 days? Yes.
Okay.
Five days internally, then it goes externally. And then, like I said, then we have a scoring sheet process there at the police department that, you know, you receive so many points if you placed first in the review board or second or third. You receive so many points off your written test. You receive so many points if you're an intermediate, advanced, or master peace officer, and so many points as far as how many years you've been with the city.
I see.
And so for college degrees, college hours, and different things like that.
However, I don't think that, like the 2 years as a sergeant, I mean, that's not in the statute, so I don't think that the commission will be bound by that.
Yes.
It's in the statute?
Yes.
Okay.
But if you don't have anyone that qualifies for that, then it gives the, you know, kind of the breakdown. And then also too, you can adopt what's referred to as an alternative promotion process, which would be a type of assessment center, so not going off of just the written testing. And that would be something that's set about in the local rules, which is kind of what we run right now as a type of assessment center.
And so the statute for the civil service is, in this particular scope, or in this particular parameter, really helps to protect the officers that are here now to allow them to move up.
So yes, it has.
It gives a preference to the internal
So the way
hire.
the civil service initial thing is set up for promotions, truthfully, it's your best test takers. That's who gets promoted, is because if you go off of just the civil service rules, ultimately, there's 3 books that are selected. Those books are then sent to the testing center. They create the test off of those 3 books. The officers are provided those 3 books. They have so long to read those books, and they take the test over those books. So it's your test takers that make the next promotion, which is why some cities or some, you know, associations want to adopt that alternative, because some people aren't good test takers, but they're great about other things. They just get all nervous when taking a test.
Right.
But some cities do leave it as just based on the test and the years of service, and that's it.
All right. Thank you.
Other powers of the commission has the power to investigate. They can issue subpoenas, they can require people to come to court and testify, they can administer oaths, they can take depositions of witnesses out of state. The oaths and subpoenas hold the same force and effect as a state judge. And if you refuse to comply with subpoena or refuse to testify, or refuse to comply with the subpoenas, then it's a crime. You can be charged with a crime. So they have quite a bit of power similar to a judge. So any employment action under the chapter can be appealed to the commission. That would include hiring, firing, suspension, punishment, testing, and determinations of seniority. Appeals to the commission are the same as court proceedings with attorneys, and the employee is allowed to appear by attorney, and there will be sworn testimony taken.
I've got another question here on that. Can we go back one more slide? So on the firing, the commission handles the firing, but does that, if a fired employee goes to the TWC, the Texas Workforce Commission, who's facilitating that engagement with TWC? Is that the commission, or at that point, the hat of responsibilities move over back to the HR? Question mark.
I'm not certain. I don't know. But another important, related to hiring and firing, the commission hears appeals by all police and fire and to the chiefs. So if the city council wants to fire the chief, they can appeal to the commission, and the commission decides whether they are fired or not fired. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I'm allowed to take questions. It's up to the mayor.
Jerry?
The commission has the authority to appoint a director, And so the director, as I mentioned before, that's the day-to-day person that works at City Hall every day and administers the process. The director is paid an amount as determined by the city council.
Is there any direction by the state of what that salary is? And does that go into the budget for the police department?
Yeah, so that's another important matter.
Who's paying for that?
The city pays, right? And I would suspect that the commission would present their own proposed budget to city council, but it would still, in my estimation, we'll have to talk to the finance director, but in my estimation, that would still fall under the police and fire department's budget. It would just be a sub-portion of the budget. And there, in addition to paying for a director, there are other expenses that will come up. For example, if a firefighter or a police officer, there's a question if are they physically or mentally qualified to do the task of their job. The commission appoints a physician, a doctor, to review their records and maybe give them physical exams. That's going to cost, but the city pays for it. And then that physician makes a recommendation. If the employee doesn't agree with that recommendation by that physician, then the commission has to appoint 3 physicians and pay for 3 doctors to review the records, do whatever examinations that they want to do to support their decision. So there will be expenses for developing testing. Also, if there's a grievance filed, the commission doesn't directly hear grievances. They'll appoint a grievance officer, and you would have to, the city would need to pay for the grievance officer to hear the grievances, and those are items that are lower than, firing or suspension or of those items that we already covered. So there will be those expenses that the commission will incur, but needs to be paid by the city. So I'd expect that the commission would need to formulate a budget for those items and submit those together as a sub-portion of the police and fire department budgets.
Can I go back to a comment you'd said earlier?
Yeah.
If you go back to 143.012, Section D, it still leaves it at the discretion. Municipality government shall determine salary, if any, for the director. So that can be an existing position, but that's up to the governing body to make that decision.
Correct. Yeah,
So
they control the
you
purse
said it over and
strings.
over, they're going to pay a salary, but I went back and checked your stuff all the way through, and the if any needs to be noted in that conversation as well. So I just want to make that clear that that may be somebody within the city be appointed that as well. So that's all I had to say on that one. Thank you.
Okay, so this was the chiefs, even though they're not considered, they don't fit in the full system of the civil service as far as promotion, hiring, and firing, and all that. They still have a right to appeal to the commission if the council wants to terminate their employment or punish them. If that the chief was referencing earlier about the personnel one level below. If a department has 4 or more levels of command, then the chief can appoint each person immediately below the chief if the commission allows. There's hiring and firing of these employees will only be by the chief. However, those decisions to be hired or fired, firing or discipline against those individuals, they can still go to the commission to appeal that. If let's say an employee gets disciplined and suspended and they go to the commission and they lose in front of the commission, then that employee has the ability to appeal to district court in Angleton, the state court, and appeal the decision and file a lawsuit at that point. However, I should point out that, that appeal starts from a brand new trial. The judge or jury will consider all the facts. It's not just grading the paper of the commission. However, I point out that if the city loses at the decision of the commission, the city can't appeal to the court.
Mr. Duncan, I have a question. On the previous slide, as far as compensation for the director, I guess as kind of the administrator, assistant for the commission, and compensation, whether the commission decides to do so. I'm also curious if the commission will be receiving any kind of stipend for their efforts, much like the way the council receives a lump, huge sum of $150 a month. Will this commission also have any compensation? I think the mayor gets a little bit more, but.
Not that I'm aware of.
Can the commission create their own stipend, or is that something the council would create?
No, council determines all spending, right?
Okay.
So, going back to the commission hires the director, and the amount of salary is determined by the city council, if any. I can see where you can get into a situation, because the council can't require the commission to hire a volunteer, right? So,
Right.
What happens if you get to the point where the commission says, we want to appoint this person, and we want to pay them a salary.
Right.
It's a full-time position. We want somebody to be paid for that full-time position. We want an independent person, not somebody that already works for the city, because we're an independent agency, right?
Yeah, I can see the conflict of interest there already.
And then, the council says, well, we don't want to pay that person any, that would probably result in, litigation.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because they get to choose whoever they want, and they're not required to pick somebody that would be a volunteer, or pick someone that already works for the city, because that would go contrary to their purpose of being independent from the city, independent from the department.
At no given time, let me ask this other question. At no given time, does the commission have any information that the city doesn't have in terms of HR materials? Is that a true statement?
Say that again.
At no given time, will any of the commission members have any work-related materials that the HR department of the city wouldn't already have? In other words, I just want to understand clearly here, though the commission has certain authorities, they won't have the privilege of information being only exclusive to them and them alone. Is that a true statement, or is there a scenario where they would have information that the council would not have? I'm just trying to understand the different levels and possible scenarios where the city council is disempowered or left to the devices of, client attorney privilege. And I'm just wondering is there a slippery slope of that possibility?
Yeah, I'm not sure what documentation they would have that the city doesn't have.
Because I know we're talking about public information requests. I would hope that the city would always be the primary source for all that information, not the commission and their administrator.
Public information requests, I believe, would go directly to the commission. Their meetings, they follow Open Meetings Act, they follow the same rules that the city has to follow.
So an officer gets suspended, he appeals, and now the hearing's being set for 30 days out. Residents say, you know what, I really want to know what happened there. And then I'm just wondering what information that is public, who would they ask that from? Human Resources or from the commission?
Well, complaints against officers are confidential, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're dealing with police officers and firefighters, there are other rules that would make that information confidential under certain circumstances.
Okay.
And just for clarity, even though if, whatever disciplinary that was issued, that yes, Human Resources would have a copy of it. However, if that officer went through an appeal or arbitration process, they might have records that they bring to the table that Human Resources and the commission might not initially have. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So for their defense, if you will, that initially, we wouldn't know what they're bringing to the table to be able to fight, because the only thing we can bring to the table is what was already provided.
In the first 120 hours?
And so,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
So I have to go back and look at this, I have this, I tried to do it, because there's a lot of information, and I know that we don't want to just stream through too quickly, but also I don't want to, belabor things too much. So I have here under my note that the commission determines staffing of departments as far as the classifications and how the promotions work and so forth. So regarding hiring requirements, the commission determines what age, what physical requirements for each job, and for promotions. They can provide that each employee take a mental and physical exams as set by the commission. And then each employee seeking to be hired or promoted must be examined by a physician, psychiatrist, or psychologist. And the commission makes those requirements and chooses those physicians or psychiatrists for examination.
Another quick question here. It seems like these hiring and all these physicians and everything is really starting to add up. And it seems like everybody's getting heartburn on how much this is going to end up costing the city. Is there any way to undo this? A resident asked me, how do we turn this around if this is the case? Can we turn this around tonight? Can we just vote this away tonight? Or do we have to actually, do we have a responsibility to fulfill what the election on November actually required us to do?
Yes, you're required, the vote has happened. The voters have spoken, it's already done, right? So there's no, you cannot, the council has no authority to undo anything, right?
Would it be okay for me to just whine about it at every meeting?
If you want to.
Okay.
The earliest, let's say the voters wanted to undo the civil service system, the law says that they cannot, you cannot, it follows the same procedure to start the civil service, right? So there has to be a petition by the 20% of the voters, and the law says petition cannot be presented anytime before 1 year anniversary of the election. So that means that the petition earliest could be presented would be November of next year, which then would mean the earliest there could be an election to undo the civil service would be May of 27. And so going back to the council, the voters have spoken, council has no authority to undo this. It can only be undone by the voters. And actually, once y'all confirm, the Civil Service Board Commission is appointed and confirmed by y'all, then they pretty much take control of what's going on with regard to the system. They have their independent authority by statute.
Chief? I don't know.
As I mentioned, that all hirings and promotions are required to have examinations, and they're required that the commission must provide those examinations free of charge. As described earlier, that the commission decides, they put forward the list of who's eligible to be hired, and that based on testing and their seniority points, and then the chief is required to hire the first person on the list unless they provide a specific reason in writing to the commission, and then they're allowed to go to the second or third choice. The commission decides the probationary period of employees, so they can decide if probationary period is 6 months or up to 12 months. After the probationary period of an employee has passed, then they have full protection under the civil service system. So new hires don't have all the protections of the system. As mentioned previously, when we first institute this, you have to be here at least 6 months to fall in the system. Under this statute, the commission can decide to keep that 6 months or extend that to anywhere up to 12 months before the employee gets the system protection. Commission administers, comes up with and administers all the promotional exams, and must announce 90 days in advance if there's going to be promotional examinations, so people have time to prepare. The commission adopts the rules for promotions, so they can decide how promotions are done. There's a default 1 point per year for service. It's added to your exam grade. You have to make at least 60 points on the exam to pass. If you have an appeal, you feel like there was some reason that the test was not administered fairly, or you have some question about an employee has some question about the examination process, they appeal that to the commission. The commission certifies the names of those eligible for promotion and once again ranks them 1, 2, and 3. The commission determines the rules for removal or suspension, so under certain categories. So the statute has several categories, but actually the rules of your employment under those categories are set forth and determined by the commission. So our current HR rules would not apply. The commission sets the new rules. If someone is demoted, they can hear appeal on the demotion, and the commission decides whether to uphold the demotion or reinstate the person. Commission reviews suspensions after criminal charges. If an employee is suspended because they were charged with a crime, the commission can review and undo that and reinstate that employee under certain circumstances. The commission decides if someone is physically fit. That's what I talked about earlier, about the commission hires a physician to examine people to see if they're physically fit or mentally fit, and if it's appealed, then they have to pay, they appoint 3 physicians or mental professionals. And all of these things are paid by the city that goes in the budget. The commission determines the measurements of job performance. So once again, going back to the rules of HR, what type of things are expected from you? What things do you get in trouble if you don't reach certain performance guidelines? Those are all decided by the commission. The director appointed by the commission maintains all the personnel files of the police officers related to their job performance, suspension, hiring, firing, termination, so forth. The director appointed by the commission monitors all grievances and institutes the grievance program. As I mentioned earlier, those grievances are not heard by the commission, but the commission appoints a grievance examiner, and the grievance examiner makes that determination, and then if the employee disagrees with the examiner, then there's an appeal to the commission to resolve grievances. So those would be general grievances, general complaints, not necessarily adverse employment action like a suspension or demotion. And that's all I have.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Duncan?
And the main thing that I wanted to go through the whole statute, because there are a lot of, if you go through everything, the commission is really very involved in pretty much everything related to human resources for the fire and police officers. So they have a great deal of responsibility and a time requirement.
Once again, thank you for the review and all the information you brought forward to us about this situation here. So appreciate it.
Councilman Rosso, you got anything?
No, he said you have to make a 60 on the test?
70.
Pool.
70. Oh, I meant to say 70.
60.
Yeah. On the page it said 70.
You know, I personally have questions about this director position. If it has to be a full-time employee, and we're anticipating after the first year, the commission only meeting 3 or 4 times a year, assuming everything is smooth sailing in the city of Freeport, what is this director going to be doing on a 40-hour week?
Well, I think they'll probably meet much more than that, because you have to consider every time somebody's hired, that involves the commission, right? And you have a lot of turnover in hiring, firing with police officers in general for most police departments that I've been associated with. So you may only have one or two suspension appeal hearings, but you have grievances, you have promotions, you have hiring. I estimate they would be doing a lot of most of the HR functions of the police and the fire department.
So that's why most of the cities that, in doing the research that I've spoken with, that the director is generally an employee in the HR, whether it's the actual HR director or another individual in HR, but that's for most cities that I have spoken with. A few cities have done a few different appointments, that they've had, I've seen where the city secretary, like I said, majority that I've researched for have been, that director is, the human resources director or an individual in human resources.
But that decision is made, we don't have any say, the commission decides.
Correct.
Right, so,
Correct.
That's completely up to their discretion if they want to, use as a current city employee or somebody else.
So it's safe to say, in a typical city, this is not someone that they're going to bring in someone specifically for this position.
Well, so like that's what, Chris just said, that's, the commission decides, but, it's just, we're gonna try to get as many different examples from different cities to be able to provide that information to the commission on, hey, you can see what, down the road what Alvin did, this is what Pearland did. If you want to go to cities more comparable to our sides, this is what Santa Fe did, this is what, just to be able for them to see what other cities did to help kind of lay a path for them and help them in making their decisions.
Yeah, give some options. Yeah, because I understand the concept of this and the desire to remove political influence and what have you from the police department, but we also have to understand that sitting up here, we have to be looking out for the city. And,
Yeah.
and in the long run, I see the potential for a lot of headaches, especially when it comes to finances on this, because this is going to be a costly endeavor. When you're talking about doctors and lawyers and psychiatrists and psychologists and what have you. However, the citizens of the city asked for it, so here we are. I'm going to get to you. Council, do you have any other questions for Mr. Duncan before we move on?
I just want to go off the question that you had just asked about the director. I guess 2 points is, if we want to avoid as many headaches, I could see that it's feasible, if not necessary. And I would say this, I'll preface what I'm about to say here next, is that every city is different. They might have come to the civil service for different circumstances. And so that said, the circumstances that brought us here, that the citizens had voted for, the residents, we could easily look to even outsource it so that it's not somebody in-house. But it leads me to a bigger question of, how busy are they going to be? Well, we know we have a hiring need in the police department because we've had a lot of attrition. So I'm just kind of curious, how many spots are open currently in the police department? I think during the budget cycle, it was something like 5 or 6 that we were short.
So we have our 2 that just graduated the academy, but we still have 3 openings.
3 openings. And so on any given month or every quarter, how many openings are there? I mean, historically, we've kind of been underemployed over the last several years, is that right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I would say at the highest point, when I came here, I think it was 7 openings,
Wow.
6 or 7 openings when I came here.
Yeah. And so we're always constantly having to turn that wheel of interviewing and hiring. So that is a time-consuming position there, or that particular responsibility is will keep that person busy as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that person also, I mean, they basically serve as the secretary, if you will, to the commission. So they would be the ones that would be posting the agendas, keeping up with the minutes, and all of
Yeah.
those records.
Yeah. Are we familiar with any third-party HR services that provide, that would do something like this, or that have?
Not that I'm aware of, that I've heard from any city.
I know there
I'm
are
sure
third-party
yeah, it's
HR
like
companies.
I know
Yeah.
there are, but as far as of any city doing it, not that
Yeah.
I have heard of.
Okay, just
But
curious.
I do have a list of all the civil service agencies.
Yeah.
I did post, it's been several weeks ago, where I put in the Texas Police Chiefs Association bulletin, reaching out to all the civil service agencies across the state, saying, hey, we're looking for, information, looking for your local rules, just trying to, again, cast as broad of a net as we could to gather
Yeah.
as much information as possible.
All right. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about the, the highest level of objectivity that we can achieve and fairness for everybody. Thank you.
Council, any other questions? All right. Now, we don't normally do this, but tonight is special, so we're going to open it up to the public. Ms. Dancy, we're going to let you go first.
Pam Dancy, how do I want to say this to where it doesn't sound bad? When all that kind of crap was, excuse my language, was going on, with some of it with the police department, Lance and so forth, well, most of the citizens, I would say, didn't really know what was happening, right? So then a group come in here and talk about putting this union together. And me personally, I mean, anything to do with the police department, I'm for it. I'm for vests, I'm for bullets, I'm for video, anything. But I didn't, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't vote for this. And the reason being is that just because it said police on the ballot, I personally did not have enough knowledge to know what I was voting for. So I chose not to vote for it, right? Not that I'm against the police, that wasn't it. It's just that I did not have knowledge. So at our last meeting, the chiefs come up here and they didn't even know what was going on. And so I think the citizens voted for something they had no idea what they were voting for, actually, I think, because they didn't even know what was going on with this particular thing. And I think we got the cart and didn't know what size horse we were going to need to pull the cart, right? But my deal is here, what about the charter? Do we have to do something with the charter on this?
No, the charter is generally the constitution of the city, the highest law, right? But
Right.
it's voted, the reason that that's the case because the citizens actually vote to establish charter provisions, right? So whenever they have the vote to create the Civil Service Commission and Civil Service procedures, the citizens voted for that. So if there is any conflict between those two, the civil service would prevail.
Okay. Other question, the rules, does the commissioner make the rules? Or is it a standard set of rules that come with the union? Oh, does the commissioner write the rules, or is it a standard union rules?
Okay, so the commission, not one commissioner,
Oh.
3 commissioners, right?
Right.
So it depends on what rules you're talking about, right? So the procedures that we just talked about, the chiefs talked about, I talked about, like, for example, you give the written notice of suspension within 120 hours, and then they appeal within 10 days, and the authority and the power that the commissioners have, all those rules are already set by law. And so all of those procedures are already in place. Now, the commission does set, other specific rules and specifically regarding job requirements, discipline rules and things like that that they set. So those would be the local rules. And there is some ability to change some of these procedures in statute, but most of them are all just required.
Okay, so the rules that the police chief has in place now, will they combine with the commissioner's rules? Am I getting this, am I not saying that
Hold on,
correctly?
we got the chief coming up to comment.
Okay.
So where the police department has their policies and procedures, fire department has their policies and procedures, and the city has their policies and procedures, all of those will actually be updated to conform with Chapter 143, and then also whatever local rules.
Okay, and the test, the test, you mentioned the test, and so did the chief. Is that a standard test?
That's the tests that are determined by the commission. Now, there are certain standard tests out there, right? And they can choose, right? I'm sure that nationwide, there's lots of different tests that they can choose from. And the chief mentioned that there's 3 specific books and certain tests, but it's my understanding that the commission is not necessarily, that's the logical and the easy way to do, right? You already have these existing books, you have these existing tests, adopt one of those, right? But there may be some company out there that says, hey, we got this great test, and maybe they want to go with something different.
Okay. I'm
So
sorry.
so actually, for the hiring test are standard, and those are the same, but for each promotion test, you have to do a different test every single time. And so that's where like the 3 books come in, and so it has to be different books for a different
But
test.
that's not something we're doing now, right, or is it?
I don't do books. We do.
No, I mean, when you,
We do a test, but we create a different test for every promotion process.
Okay.
Because if I wasn't eligible to promote the first time, but you were, so I don't want to give the same test because now you have the advantage
Correct.
over me. And so it's kind of, it'll be the same concept with civil service,
Mm-hmm.
that there'd be a different test each time.
okay. Also on, did you need to say something?
We've been doing third-party testing for over 10 years.
Okay, no,
And it's monitored outside the station. It's integrated that way. So it's graded criteria.
okay. Also, you had mentioned, wait a minute. Does Alvin actually, are they in a union, and who's the other one you mentioned?
Alvin is civil service, Santa Fe is civil service, Pearland Civil Service, those are some of our closest agencies.
Do they have more citizens, don't they? Yes. Yeah, they have a lot more citizens than we do. Okay, and let's say it has to go to Angleton, okay? You mentioned Angleton, I'm just asking here, who actually pays for that?
Okay, so if the employee goes through the whole process and has their hearing with Civil Service Commission, and they're unhappy with the ruling of Civil Service Commission, then they can file a lawsuit. Just like, you have to go through all the administrative procedures before you can file a lawsuit. So under this system, they would need to go through all this process before they're even allowed to go file the lawsuit, right? But if they're unhappy with the Civil Service ruling, they can file a lawsuit in district court.
But who's actually paying for that?
The employee, they'll
The
have to
employee.
hire a lawyer.
Okay, so actually, let me get this straight and I'll be done with my questions. Thank y'all for putting up with me. So when a new employee comes in that wants to apply for either one, fire or the police, do you still get to interview them? Or does it go directly to? Pardon?
Yes, it would just be later in the process, but the rule of civil service on the number 1 is who gets hired, which is the same thing that we actually do now for promotions and hiring. Whoever is the number 1 is the first one, and that's the way our policy is set about, unless there is I have to articulate a specific reason to not go with the number 1 candidate for a hiring or a promotion.
Okay, it just kind of sounded as though it was taking some authority away from y'all, which I hope that wouldn't be the case. Is it?
I mean, I don't see it as taking away any authority from us, because, I mean, if that individual's number 1, if something comes about in their background, that's a disqualifier for them. That's the same as civil service as it is as we are now, so.
Yeah, but I think currently, the chiefs have a grading procedure, and I'm not really I'm not specifically familiar with it, but I'm sure it has a lot more intangible things, right? More intangible factors other than just grade seniority, right? This would now be just grade and seniority. So if they like, hey, this guy is very productive as an officer, and maybe that fits into their grading procedure. Or maybe this guy, shows good leadership skills. There are other factors that are intangible that they probably put into their grading now that's going to be eliminated at this point. So now it's just the testing and the seniority, and the commission determines who's number one, who's number two.
Okay, I get that.
Unless they decide to adopt an assessment center, but would still have very specific guidelines laid out. It wouldn't have any, the leadership quality. That wouldn't be something that, it'd have to be something that you can tangibly score with each individual.
Okay. And one last question. What would be the salary, let's say, for this particular person?
Which person?
The full-time?
The director?
Correct.
I don't know. I don't know. It's like, the commission decides who they want to hire, and then it's, it depends on what that person wants. If they really like somebody, and if they really like somebody and they work for the city and they're free, then it's free. If they really like somebody and they say, hey, we're going to charge you X number of dollars, and they really like that person, they want to hire them, then they'll come to council and say, we want to hire this person, we want to pay X number of dollars.
Well, that's cool. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question about the qualifications of the director. What would the qualifications be? The educational requirements? I mean, are y'all gonna post a job on the website? Or can like a construction worker say, I wanna be the director? We need to know requirements and what educational background they have. Do they have to have law enforcement background? Or can you just pick any Smojo off the street just because we like him? I don't think that would be fair.
Okay, so the city manager, along with the city council, city manager appoints the commission, right? And then the commission hires a director. The law doesn't have any specific requirement for the director, so the commission decides what requirements they want for that job. So if they say, we want somebody with a college degree and experience, blah, 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 right?
Okay.
So, and then the chief's coming up, maybe there's something different here.
No, there actually is specifications in local government code over for the director. I'm just trying to scroll to the actual part. A person appointment director must meet requirements for appointment to the commission prescribed in section 143.006, except in municipality of less than population. They must be, a person appointed as director may be a commission member, a municipal employee, or some other person. The governing body determines the salary. But so, yeah, they do lay out all
Yeah, but
that.
So like you said.
There's no educational or experience requirement.
So don't have to have, like, they say they're gonna be dealing with HR, so do they have to have a HR background, or?
No.
It,
It said they have to, the statute says they have to meet the same requirement as a director, which means you can't have any criminal history
Yeah.
but there's no experience or educational requirement in the statute.
That's-
But then you got to trust the commission. We're appointing these commissioners, they have a lot of authority. You got to trust them to make good decisions, right?
Yeah, that has to be a sound decision right there, because and how do we get applications out there? How are we gonna do the, to get the word out there that we need a director?
That would be up to the commission to advertise and put that out. I'm sure they'll work with the city to do that.
Makes
sense.
And then also, I did want to add earlier, I didn't want to interrupt Chris when he was doing on that presentation, but, for specifications, like regarding Chief Motley and myself, I know it came about in the email system of, us being under civil service. Technically speaking, we don't have those protections that civil service does at this time.
Right.
But if let's say next year I leave, let's say Captain Brinkman becomes chief of police, because he comes up through civil service, that's where he gets certain civil service protections and can be demoted down. So if it came about as far as like the removal of me, I do not have any appeal process. Chief Motley doesn't have any appeal process.
I didn't read that in the statute, because it said if you're getting rid of a department head, that they can appeal, so.
And so, but only if, once we're enacted in civil service and we get promoted up to a department head. That's what we were told by a civil service attorney and some other civil service directors, because that's what I was getting the clarification on too, because that was my understanding, that we would not apply for the civil service protection. But again, myself, Chief Motley leaves, then somebody, once we are civil service, gets to come up, those individuals get the civil service protection, if that makes sense. But because we didn't come up in it, so we don't have that appeal process. And then that kind of goes to, I have the question on that there might need to be a change in charter because of that. And so I do have that little question and notation to be able to follow up with somebody over that. I'm hoping to get that answer at training.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, council. Quick question. Do the commissions get paid? Are they on a salary? No? Okay.
I touched on that question earlier.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the statutes that they're required to be paid.
My question was deeper, can they give themselves a salary? Or at least a stipend? Or is that, if they were to choose, if they were to request that, the council would then have to bless that? Is that probably the correct answer on that particular end?
I don't know the answer to that, because it doesn't address that in the statute.
Well, there you go.
All right, y'all answered my question. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once. Going twice. We're moving on. Moving on to City Council Agenda Item Number 3A, consideration and possible action approving Resolution Number 2025-3014, establishing a Civil Service Commission pursuant to Chapter 143 of the Texas Local Government Code. Dr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you. So the voters of City of Freeport back in November approved the adoption of Chapter 143 of the Texas Local Government Code, establishing a municipal civil service system for police officers and firefighters. Now that they've done that, we have to actually form the Civil Service Commission to administer and oversee the civil service system, which includes hiring, promotions, disciplinary actions, and appeals. This resolution establishes the commission, defines its composition, outlines its duties, and ensures compliance with state law.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, I will entertain a motion
I'll make a motion to approve.
to approve
The resolution.
a motion to approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilman Davis. Any discussion on this, gentlemen? Any questions?
This is, I guess, the formal resolution to adopt the voted upon resolution? Okay,
Right.
yeah, just want to be clear on that. Thank you.
So I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item 3B, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2025-3015 for the confirmation of the city manager's appointments to the Police Officers and Firefighters Civil Service Commission. Dr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you. In compliance with statutory requirements, staff initiated a public recruitment process to solicit applications for appointment to the Civil Service Commission. Outreach included posting a recruitment flyer on the city's website, multiple social media platforms, and physical postings at City Hall and the Police Department beginning November 20th, 2025. The recruitment was also shared internally with city employees and the applicable associations to encourage broad participation. Applications and resumes were accepted through December 15th, 2025. Due to the timing of my start date, Police Chief Howell and Fire Chief Motley coordinated the initial recruitment effort and provided the city manager with all applications and resumes received. I reviewed the submitted material and met with the chiefs prior to the council meeting on December 15th to discuss qualifications and statutory requirements. After reviewing the applications and received and verifying the eligibility under Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 143, I recommend the following individuals for appointment to the Police Officers and Firefighters Civil Service Commission. The recommended appointees and proposed initial staggered terms are as follows. Ms. Margaret Bachman for an initial 1 term, Mr. Kerry Moore for 2-year term, and Mr. Tyrone Morrow for an initial 3-year term.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Before we move on, Ms. Tippin, we've answered all your questions? That's what I was hoping to hear.
I got a question. Not a question, but a request.
Yes, sir.
We're going executive session, consult with the attorney right quick.
All right, we have a motion to go into executive session. Do we need a vote on that? Anybody opposed going into executive session? Y'all do? All right, I hear no opposition to going into executive session, so it is now 8:01. We are going to recess into executive session. Consultation with attorney. I don't know how else you want to put it. That attorney's shaking his head saying that's good enough. Stick around, because I don't anticipate this to be a lengthy executive session. Although I have said that before and was completely wrong.